The forest was dense, with trees towering like ancient sentinels. A group of hikers, 5 in total, stumbled upon a small clearing bathed in an eerie, unnatural light. The silence was oppressive, the kind that makes the skin crawl. It was here they found it, a phone lying half buried in the dirt, its screen cracked but still flickering weakly. Jake, the group's leader, bent down and picked up the device. "Guys, check this out," he said, his voice barely a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the stillness. He pressed a button, and a recording began to play. Static crackled. Then a voice emerged, strained and shaky. "This is. If anyone finds this, my name is David Ross. I'm a hunter, or I was. I'm deep in these woods and something is hunting me." The hikers exchanged uneasy glances. Sarah, the most curious of the group, nudged Jake. "Play it from the beginning," she urged. Jake complied, rewinding the recording to the start. The voice, now clearer, began again. "My name is David Ross. I've been a hunter for 20 years. These woods have always been my refuge. But this time something's different. There's something out here with me. I can feel it watching." A cold wind rustled the leaves, sending a shiver down their spines. As the recording continued, David's voice grew more frantic. "It started a few days ago. I heard noises at night, thought it was just wildlife. But then I saw it. Eyes in the dark, staring at me, too high off the ground to be any animal I know." The hikers felt the tension rising. Each word from the recording seemed to pull them deeper into the forest, into David's terror. The crackling of twigs underfoot, the distant hoot of an owl, every sound now seemed amplified, menacing. "I'm leaving this recording in case I don't make it," David's voice said, breathless. "It's not just an animal. It's something else. I don't know what it is, but it's smart. It knows I'm here, and it's playing with me. I found tracks that vanish into thin air. I've seen shadows that don't belong." Sarah's eyes were wide with fear. "We need to get out of here," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jake hesitated, but the grip of the story held him. "Let's listen a bit more," he said, though his own nerves were fraying. He turned up the volume, and David's voice became a lifeline in the suffocating darkness. "To whoever finds this," David continued, "I hope you never have to face what I did. It's relentless. It doesn't sleep. And it wants me. I've set traps, tried to outsmart it, but it's always one step ahead." The recording ended abruptly, leaving the hikers in a stunned silence. The forest seemed to close in around them, the darkness more oppressive than before. Jake looked at his friends, their faces pale and drawn. "We need to leave," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. As they turned to go, the wind picked up, carrying with it a faint, almost imperceptible sound, a whisper, a growl, or perhaps just their imagination. But the sense of being watched was unmistakable, and it urged them to move quickly, their steps hurried and hearts pounding in unison. The phone fell silent in Jake's hand, but the terror it conveyed lingered, a shadow that followed them out of the woods and haunted their dreams long after they escaped the tree's oppressive embrace. David Ross's voice crackled to life again as the hikers, now a safe distance from the clearing, gathered around the flickering phone. The recording picked up where it left off, his tone calm yet underscored with tension. A1. Packed up the usual gear, rifle, ammo, supplies for a week. The woods have always been a second home to me, but this time something feels off. Maybe it's just my imagination, or maybe it's the weather. Clouds are hanging low, like they're waiting for something. David's voice conveyed the seasoned confidence of a hunter, but there was an edge to it, a slight tremor that suggested unease. The hikers listened intently, the forest around them eerily quiet. I set off early before dawn. The trees were just silhouettes against the dim light. Every step seemed louder than usual. The crunch of leaves underfoot, the snap of twigs. Sounds I know well, but today they felt wrong. Like they didn't belong to me. A sense of foreboding settled over the group. Jake's grip tightened on the phone as David's account continued. About midday, I stopped by a stream to refill my canteen. That's when I first felt it. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I looked around but saw nothing, just trees and shadows. It was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you think you're not alone. Sarah glanced nervously at the surrounding woods, the dense foliage seeming to close in on them. David's voice pulled them back into his experience. I kept moving, trying to shake the feeling. The trail twisted and turned, deeper into the forest. The light was fading, but I pressed on. There was a clearing up ahead where I planned to camp. Made it just as the sun dipped below the horizon. Set up my tent, got a fire going. The normal routine. But I couldn't relax. I kept feeling eyes on me. David's description painted a vivid picture, a lone hunter in a vast, unfriendly wilderness. The hikers felt his isolation, his growing paranoia. Night fell fast. The fire crackled, casting long shadows. I sat with my back to a tree, rifle across my lap. Every rustle in the underbrush, every snap of a branch had me on edge. I told myself it was just nerves. But then, just beyond the firelight, I saw them. Eyes. Reflective, like an animal's, but higher off the ground than any animal I know. The suspense was palpable. The hikers huddled closer, eyes darting around as if expecting those same eyes to appear in the darkness around them. I stayed up all night, rifle in hand, but nothing came. The eyes vanished as quickly as they appeared. I tried to tell myself it was a trick of the light, but I knew better. Something was out there watching. David's voice took on a more urgent tone, a mix of fear and determination. Day 2. Broke camp at first light. Tried to find tracks, but there was nothing. No broken branches, no footprints. Whatever it was, it left no trace. I decided to keep moving, deeper into the woods. I needed to know what was out there. If it was animal, spirit, or something else. Jake paused the recording, looking at his friends. Their faces mirrored his own unease. "We need to be careful," he said, echoing David's words. "Whatever's out here, it's not normal." The hikers nodded in agreement, their earlier bravado replaced by a growing fear. The phone screen flickered again as Jake resumed the recording, David's voice pulling them once more into the darkness of the woods. "Whatever happens," David's voice continued, "I'm leaving this record. If I don't make it, at least someone will know. There's something in these woods. Something old, something hungry." The hikers felt a chill run down their spines, the oppressive atmosphere of the forest closing in around them. They moved quickly, their footsteps echoing David's own journey into the unknown, each step taking them deeper into the heart of the mystery that had claimed him. The hikers, now on edge, huddled closer as Jake replayed the next part of the recording. David Ross's voice filled the still air, a blend of tension and cautious curiosity. Day 3. I've been pushing deeper into the woods, following a game trail. The underbrush is thicker here, like the forest doesn't want me to go further. The air feels heavy, oppressive. I've been hearing noises, not the usual wildlife sounds, but something different, something deliberate. David's voice trembled slightly, the fear becoming more palpable with each word. The hikers could almost see the dense forest, feel the claustrophobic grip of the trees around him. Midday. I found tracks. At least I think they were tracks. They were strange, like nothing I've seen before. Not animal, not human. They seemed to twist and turn, like the creature couldn't decide which way to go. The prints were deep, though. Whatever made them was heavy. A twig snapped nearby, causing the hikers to jump. The forest around them seemed to be closing in, the shadows lengthening with every passing moment. Jake's grip on the phone tightened as he continued to listen. I followed the tracks, my rifle ready. The forest was silent, unnaturally so. No birds, no insects. Just my own breathing and the crunch of leaves underfoot. That's when I saw it. A shadow darting between the trees. Quick, but I caught a glimpse. It was tall, too tall to be a person. And those eyes. Reflective, like the ones I saw before, but closer this time. The suspense was thick, each word drawing the hikers deeper into David's nightmare. Sarah clutched Jake's arm, her eyes wide with fear. I tried to get a better look, but it was gone. Vanished into the trees like smoke. My heart was pounding, adrenaline coursing through me. I knew I should turn back, but something drove me forward. Curiosity, maybe, or madness. David's voice was raw, the fear seeping through every word. The hikers could feel his desperation, his need to understand what was stalking him. As dusk fell, I set up camp again, my back to a large oak. The fire was small, but it was enough to keep the darkness at bay. Or so I thought. The noises started again, closer this time. Footsteps, but not quite right. Too soft, too deliberate. I strained my eyes, trying to pierce the darkness beyond the firelight. A gust of wind rustled the leaves, making the hikers shiver. The forest around them felt alive, watching, waiting. Then it stepped into the light, just for a moment, but I saw it. Tall, hunched, with limbs too long and a face that seemed to shift and blur. It looked at me, those reflective eyes locking onto mine. And then it smiled, not a human smile, but something twisted, mocking. The hikers felt their blood run cold. David's terror was their own, the creature's smile haunting their thoughts. I fired my rifle, the sound echoing through the trees. The creature disappeared, but I knew it wasn't gone. Just hiding, waiting. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I kept the fire going, kept my rifle close. But I knew it was watching, waiting for me to let my guard down. David's voice dropped to a whisper, the horror in his tone unmistakable. I don't know what it is, but it's not natural. It's something old, something that doesn't belong in this world. And it's hunting me. The recording ended abruptly, leaving the hikers in a suffocating silence. The forest around them seemed to close in, the shadows deeper, the air colder. They exchanged fearful glances, the reality of David's words sinking in. "We need to get out of here," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Jake nodded, but he knew it wasn't that simple. The forest seemed endless, the path back uncertain. As they moved cautiously, every rustle, every shadow, held the promise of something lurking just beyond their sight. The horror of David's first encounter was now theirs, the creature's unseen eyes following their every step. The hikers' steps quickened as Jake started the next part of the recording. David Ross's voice emerged, now edged with a raw mix of fear and determination. Day 4. I'm running on fumes. Barely slept last night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. That twisted smile, those eyes. I can't get them out of my head. I'm being hunted. I can feel it. The forest seems to know, too. It's like it's trying to warn me. David's breath hitched, the tension clear in his voice. The hikers could feel his panic, the oppressive weight of the unseen predator bearing down on them as well. I tried to find my way back this morning, but every path seemed wrong, twisted. I kept ending up in places I didn't recognize. The forest is playing tricks on me, or maybe it's that thing. Maybe it controls the woods, keeps me lost. Jake glanced around, the dense trees seeming to press in closer. The path they had taken now felt unfamiliar, each step uncertain. The noises are getting louder, closer. I keep hearing footsteps behind me, but every time I turn around, there's nothing. Just the trees, swaying in the wind. It's toying with me, enjoying my fear. It wants me to know it's there, that it's coming. David's voice cracked with fear, a primal terror that sent chills down the hikers' spines. Sarah gripped Jake's arm, her eyes darting around the darkening forest. Afternoon now. I found a spot to rest, but I can't stay still for long. I keep moving, hoping to find a way out. But the deeper I go, the more I realize it's leading me somewhere. I'm not in control anymore. The hikers felt the hopelessness in David's words, the growing sense that escape was impossible. They moved faster, the forest around them a maze of shadows and sounds. I tried to set traps, simple ones at first, like snares and deadfalls. But it's smart, too smart. It avoids them, like it knows exactly what I'm doing. It's watching my every move. I can feel its eyes on me, even now. David's voice grew more frantic, the fear almost tangible. The hikers felt his desperation, the oppressive presence of the creature closing in. Night is falling again. I've built another fire, but it feels useless. A small comfort in the face of something so unnatural. I've barricaded myself against a cliff face, hoping it'll keep me safe. But deep down, I know it's just a matter of time. The wind rustled the leaves, a soft whisper that seemed to echo David's fear. The hikers huddled closer, their fear matching his. I can hear it now, just beyond the firelight. Moving slowly, deliberately. It knows I'm trapped. I can't keep running forever. I'm so tired. But I won't give up. Not yet. I'll keep fighting. Keep trying to outsmart it. David's voice dropped to a whisper, a mix of defiance and despair. If anyone finds this, if you're listening, know that you're not alone. There's something in these woods, something ancient and relentless. It's hunting me, and it won't stop until it gets what it wants. The recording ended, plunging the hikers into a tense silence. The forest around them seemed to close in, every shadow a potential threat. They moved quickly, their fear propelling them forward, every sound and movement heightening their terror. "We need to find a way out," Jake said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "We can't let it catch us." The hikers nodded, their steps hurried and hearts pounding. The horror of David's words lingered, the sense of being hunted driving them deeper into the night. Every rustle, every flicker of shadow was a reminder that something was out there, watching, waiting. The hunt had begun, and there was no turning back. The hikers moved with renewed urgency, the eerie silence of the forest broken only by their hurried footsteps. Jake pressed play on the phone, and David Ross's voice filled the oppressive darkness once more. Day 5. I'm at my breaking point. No sleep, no rest. It's always there, just out of sight. I've set more traps trying to catch it off guard. pitfalls, tripwires, anything I can think of. But it's like it knows, like it's been watching humans for centuries, learning our tricks. David's voice was hoarse, each word dripping with exhaustion and fear. The hikers felt his desperation, the mounting hopelessness of a man outmatched by an unimaginable foe. I set up a snare trap this morning. Spent hours making sure it was perfect. Covered my tracks, hid the mechanism well. Then I waited. Hours passed and nothing. Just when I thought it wouldn't come, I heard the snap. I rushed over, heart pounding. But the trap was empty. Just a broken branch, like it was mocking me. Sarah shuddered, her eyes darting around the dense trees. The sense of being toyed with was palpable, every shadow a potential threat. Afternoon. Tried to find the stream again, thought maybe I could follow it out of here. But the forest keeps changing. Paths that should lead somewhere just loop back on themselves. I'm being herded like cattle. It's playing a game, and I'm the prey. David's frustration and fear were almost tangible. The hikers felt his confusion, the oppressive weight of a forest that seemed alive, twisting around him. Set up another trap. This one's a deadfall. Heavy logs, sharp stakes. Took most of the day to set up. I'm exhausted, but it's the only thing keeping me sane. The act of doing something, anything, to fight back. The hikers could imagine David, sweat and dirt streaked across his face, working feverishly to create a sense of control in an uncontrollable situation. Nightfall. The deadfall trap went off. Heard the crash, ran to check. The logs had fallen, but again, nothing. Just silence and shadows. It's like it knows exactly what I'm doing. It's always one step ahead. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves with an eerie whisper. The hikers felt the forest closing in, every sound a reminder of the creature lurking just beyond their sight. I'm so tired. My hands are shaking, can barely hold the rifle. But I have to keep going, have to find a way out. I've started to leave markers, hoping to create a trail I can follow back. But every time I turn around, the markers are gone, like it's erasing them, keeping me lost. David's voice cracked with the weight of his ordeal. The hikers felt his despair, the realization that the forest was an endless maze with no escape. I'm starting to doubt my own mind. Seeing things in the shadows, hearing whispers that aren't there. Or maybe they are. Maybe they are. Maybe it's the forest itself, alive and hungry. I don't know anymore. The recording was filled with static, a harsh reminder of David's isolation. The hikers' fear mirrored his, each of them feeling the weight of the forest's malevolence. I'm not giving up. I can't. But if anyone finds this, know that I tried. Know that there's something out here, something that doesn't belong. And it's hunting me. The recording ended, leaving the hikers in a thick, suffocating silence. They moved quickly, their hearts pounding, every step filled with dread. The sense of being hunted was now their reality, David's voice a haunting echo in their minds. We have to find a way out, Jake said, his voice barely more than a whisper. We can't let it catch us. The hikers nodded, their resolve hardening even as their fear grew. They pressed on, the forest around them a labyrinth of shadows and unseen dangers. Every trap David had set, every desperate attempt to survive, was now a part of their own struggle. The creature was out there, watching, waiting. And the hunt was far from over. The tension among the hikers was palpable as they pressed on through the dense forest, their ears tuned to every rustle and snap. Jake, gripping the phone tightly, played the next recording. David Ross's voice crackled through, more strained and desperate than before. Day 6. I'm losing track of time. The days and nights blur together. Every shadow feels like a threat, every sound a promise of danger. It's getting bolder. I saw it today closer than ever. David's breathing was heavy, each word a struggle. The hikers could feel his fear, a chilling echo in the oppressive silence of the forest. It was just after dawn. I was moving camp, trying to stay ahead of it. Heard a noise behind me, turned, and there it was. Tall, gaunt, with limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and those eyes, reflective and cold, they bore into me, like it was looking into my soul. Sarah gasped, her imagination painting a vivid picture of the creature. The hikers huddled closer, the forest around them feeling more hostile by the second. I froze. Every instinct screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. It just stood there, watching me. Then it smiled. That twisted, unnatural smile. I raised my rifle, hands shaking, and fired. The shot rang out, echoing through the trees. But it didn't flinch, just vanished into the shadows, like it was never there. David's voice trembled, the horror of the encounter clear. The hikers felt his helplessness, the realization that they were up against something beyond comprehension. I checked the spot where it stood. No tracks, no blood, nothing. Like it was a phantom. But I know it's real. I can feel it watching, waiting. I moved camp again, but it's always there, just out of sight. The wind rustled the leaves, making the hikers jump. Every shadow seemed to hide the creature, every sound a prelude to an attack. Nightfall. I set more traps around my camp, but I know they won't work. It's too smart, too. Unnatural. I can hear it moving, just beyond the firelight. Every crack of a twig, every rustle of leaves, sets my nerves on edge. I'm not sure how much more I can take. David's voice grew more frantic, each word laced with fear and exhaustion. The hikers felt his desperation, the suffocating weight of being hunted. I tried to sleep, but it's impossible. Every time I close my eyes, I see it. Those eyes, that smile. I keep the fire going, hoping it'll keep it at bay. But deep down, I know it's just a matter of time. It's playing with me, wearing me down. Jake paused the recording, looking at his friends. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with fear. "We need to keep moving," he whispered. "We can't let it catch us." David's voice resumed, a mix of defiance and despair. "I won't go down without a fight. If it wants me, it'll have to come and get me. I've set one last trap, my best one yet. If it works, maybe I can buy myself some time. If not, well, at least I tried." The recording ended abruptly, leaving the hikers in a tense silence. They could feel the forest closing in, the darkness more oppressive than ever. Every step was a reminder of David's struggle, the creature's unseen eyes watching their every move. "We need to stick together," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Whatever happens, we can't split up." The others nodded, their resolve hardening despite their fear. They moved quickly, every rustle and shadow a potential threat. The creature was out there, relentless and cunning. The horror of David's close encounters was now their reality, the hunt an unending nightmare from which there was no escape. As they pressed on, the sense of being hunted grew stronger, the oppressive presence of the creature a constant, unseen menace. The forest around them was alive with danger, every step a gamble in a deadly game. And the only way out was to keep moving, keep fighting, and hope they could outlast the nightmare that had claimed David Ross. The forest seemed darker, more oppressive as the hikers continued their march. Every step was fraught with tension, every rustle a potential threat. Jake, his hands trembling, played the final recording. David Ross's voice came through, a blend of resolve and resignation. Day 7. This is it. I'm at my breaking point. No more traps, no more running. It ends tonight. Either I take it down, or it takes me. I found a spot, a narrow ravine with high walls. I'll make my stand here. David's voice was firm, but there was an underlying current of fear. The hikers could sense his determination, the resolve of a man pushed to his limits. I've set up my final trap. A deadfall with heavy logs and sharp stakes. It's crude, but it's all I have left. I've camouflaged it as best I can, hoping it won't see through the ruse. I've got my rifle, a few rounds left. If it comes, I'll be ready. The wind whispered through the trees, making the hikers shiver. They felt David's desperation, the weight of his last stand pressing down on them. Night is falling. I can feel it out there, watching, waiting. The forest is silent, like it's holding its breath. I've piled up brush and leaves, making a small fire. It's not much, but it's enough to keep the darkness at bay. For now. David's breathing was heavy, each word a struggle. The hikers could picture him, alone in the ravine, the fire casting flickering shadows on the walls. It's getting closer. I can hear it moving through the underbrush. Slow, deliberate. It knows I'm here, knows I'm ready. But it's not in a hurry. It's savoring this, the final moments of the hunt. The fear in David's voice was palpable. The hikers felt his dread, the oppressive weight of the creature's presence. I've got my rifle trained on the trap. One shot, that's all I'll get. If it works, maybe I'll have a chance. If not, well, at least I'll go down fighting. I won't let it take me without a fight. A twig snapped nearby, making the hikers jump. The forest around them seemed alive with unseen threats, every shadow a potential danger. It's here. I can see it, moving through the trees. Those eyes, reflecting the firelight. That twisted smile mocking me. It steps into the trap, slow and deliberate. I squeeze the trigger. The shot echoes through the ravine, the deadfall crashing down. David's voice broke, a mix of triumph and fear. For a moment I think I've won, but then it steps out of the wreckage. Unharmed. It smiles at me, that horrible, twisted smile. And I know, this is the end. The recording cut off abruptly, leaving the hikers in stunned silence. The forest around them seemed to close in, the darkness more oppressive than ever. "We need to move," Jake said, his voice shaking. "We can't stay here." The hikers nodded, their fear propelling them forward. Every step was a reminder of David's final stand, the creature's relentless pursuit a shadow over their every move. As they pressed on, the sense of being hunted grew stronger, the oppressive presence of the creature a constant, unseen menace. The forest around them was alive with danger, every step a gamble in a deadly game. And the only way out was to keep moving, keep fighting, and hope they could outlast the nightmare that had claimed David Ross. The hikers finally stumbled out of the dense forest and into a small clearing. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie light over the scene. They were exhausted, their faces pale with fear and fatigue. Jake clutched the phone tightly, David Ross's final words still echoing in his mind. "We're almost out," Jake whispered, trying to reassure the group, though his voice trembled with lingering dread. As they moved through the clearing, they saw it. David's campsite, untouched. The remnants of his final stand. The fire pit, now cold, and the fallen logs from his deadfall trap. But there, in the center, lay David Ross. His body was mangled, twisted in a way that seemed unnatural. The hikers froze, the reality of his fate hitting them like a punch to the gut. Sarah gasped, covering her mouth while the others stood in stunned silence. "We need to keep moving," Jake said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "We can't stay here." But curiosity got the better of them. They approached the body cautiously, the forest around them eerily silent. Jake knelt beside David, his eyes scanning the area for any sign of the creature. He reached out and picked up the phone that had fallen beside David, its screen cracked but still functional. "Let's see if there's anything else," Jake said, scrolling through the recordings. He found one last file, marked with the time just before David's final confrontation. David's voice, weak and filled with despair, crackled through the speaker. "If you're listening to this, I didn't make it. It's too strong, too smart. I thought I could trap it, but it was always one step ahead. It's not just a creature. It's something. Something ancient, something that doesn't belong in this world." The hikers exchanged fearful glances. David's voice was a haunting reminder of the terror they had faced and what might still be lurking in the shadows. "It's playing with me, with all of us. It wants us to be afraid. It feeds on it, grows stronger. I don't know if anyone will find this, but if you do, stay away from these woods. There's no escaping it, no fighting it. It's part of this place, and it will never let you go." The recording ended, plunging the group into silence. The forest around them felt even more oppressive, the darkness seeming to close in. "We need to get out of here now," Sarah said, her voice urgent and filled with panic. Jake nodded, his resolve firming. "Let's go." They turned away from the clearing, their steps hurried and filled with a new sense of urgency. Every sound, every shadow felt like a threat. The weight of David's words hung over them, a grim reminder of the danger that still lurked in the woods. As they moved, the oppressive silence of the forest seemed to lift slightly, as if they were leaving the creature's territory. But the fear remained a constant companion. They didn't stop until they reached the edge of the forest, the first rays of dawn breaking through the trees. The sight of open sky and the sound of birdsong were a relief, but the terror of the night would stay with them forever. They had survived, but they knew that whatever was in those woods was still there, waiting, watching. "We need to warn people," Jake said, his voice resolute. "No one should go in there. Not ever." The others agreed, their faces etched with the horror of their experience. They turned their backs on the forest, vowing never to return, but the memory of David Ross and the creature that hunted him would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The forest, with its ancient, unseen predator, was a place of darkness and fear. And for those who entered its depths, there was no escape from the nightmare that awaited them. The news anchor's voice was calm, detached, as if reporting the weather rather than the horrors that lay hidden in the forest. The hikers, now safe at home, watched the broadcast with a mix of relief and lingering dread. Authorities have confirmed the identity of the body found in the remote woodland area as David Ross, a seasoned hunter who had been missing for several weeks. His remains were discovered by a group of hikers who had ventured into the forest. The screen cut to a shot of the dense forest, shrouded in mist. The anchor continued. Ross's death has been ruled as an accident, though the circumstances remain unclear. The hikers who found him have issued a stern warning to others, urging them to stay away from the area. The hikers exchanged uneasy glances. They knew the truth, the terrifying reality that had claimed David's life. They had escaped, but the creature remained, a dark presence lurking in the depths of the forest. Later that night, Jake sat alone in his living room, the phone that had recorded David's final days in his hands. He had replayed the recordings countless times, each listen a reminder of their ordeal. He knew he should destroy it, erase the evidence of the horror they had faced. But something stopped him. A soft knock at the door startled him. He opened it to find Sarah, her face pale and drawn. "I can't stop thinking about it," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "About what's still out there." Jake nodded, the same thoughts haunting him. "We need to do something. Warn more people. Make sure no one else goes in there." Together they sat down and began drafting a detailed account of their experience, a warning to anyone who might venture into the forest. They posted it online, shared it on every platform they could think of. The response was mixed. Some people dismissed it as a hoax. Others were genuinely concerned. A few weeks later, a small news segment caught Jake's eye. The anchor's voice was grim. "Another body has been found in the same forest where David Ross was discovered. Authorities are urging people to stay away from the area. The cause of death is still under investigation, but officials have noted similarities to Ross's case." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He knew it was the creature, claiming another victim. He reached for the phone, replaying David's last words once more. The fear and determination in David's voice were a stark reminder of the danger that still lurked in the shadows. He met with the other hikers regularly, their shared experience forging an unbreakable bond. They continued to warn people, doing everything they could to prevent more deaths. But the forest was vast, and the creature was cunning. As the months passed, the memory of their ordeal began to fade, but the fear never fully disappeared. They knew that the forest held a dark secret, one that would remain hidden from most, but all too real for those who dared to enter its depths. One evening, as Jake sat on his porch, he heard a rustling in the bushes. His heart raced, memories of the forest flooding back. But it was just a deer, its eyes reflecting the porch light. He let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. But the fear lingered. The knowledge that something ancient and relentless was out there, watching, waiting. The hikers had escaped, but the forest was still there, its dark heart beating with a predatory rhythm. The phone, with its recordings of David's final days, sat in a drawer, a grim reminder of their brush with the supernatural. Jake knew they had done all they could to warn others, but deep down, he feared it wasn't enough. The forest, and the creature within it, would always be there, a silent, unseen menace. And for those who ventured too deep, there would be no escape from the nightmare that awaited them.